Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us for this special live session. I'm Itzik Amiel, and together with my friend Rabbi David Schwartz, we're excited to bring to you another inspiring standout episode. This is actually a collaborative broadcast that brought to you by the American Bar Association International Law Section and the Switch. And in this series, David and I will interview international legal leaders out of the amazing community of the American Bar Association International Law Section members and share with you insights, ideas, stories, and strategies to inspire you actually and to help you grow your professional practice and even in your career and even in your life. And so you're definitely invited if you are with us. We are live here. David, say something that we know that we are live here.
Absolutely. Oh, it's great to be here. Day after tax day. 100%. Wonderful to be live with you, Itzik.
Yeah, is any news you want to share with us right away in the beginning, David, before
Oh
we
yeah,
start?
sure. Happy to share a little bit about we have this amazing conference coming up in the beginning of May. We have closing in on 500 to 600 registrants, 800 participants. It's going to be phenomenal. We've got tremendous numbers of trade and dispute resolution programs, and it's going to be really wonderful. We've got 3 fabulous luncheon speakers. Ambassador Beth Van Skok, who's the ambassador at large for global criminal justice for the United States. We've got Roger Martella, who is GE's sustainability officer, chief sustainability officer. And on Friday, we've got Kathy Vidal, who is undersecretary for commerce and focusing on intellectual property. And she's also the head of the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. And she'll be telling us a little bit about what's going on in connection with China and trade and intellectual property, something really very fascinating. So really amazing speakers. And it's going to be phenomenal. It's the place to be if you're an international lawyer. So
Absolutely. I
May
was
7th,
just come.
May 7th to 10th. And you can register online. You just do a search for it. But https://ambar.org, ILS annual 24. So anyway.
And you can as Google it, as David said. And I would suggest just book and come. You don't know what you're going to miss because it is absolutely one of a kind conference. Again, I'm going around the world to a lot of conferences, and I'm not going to say it about every conference, but I think people make the conference, as David says. And if you come, you'll understand me. It's not only the content, it's the people you'll be surrounded. And one of them is our guest, by the way, today. Right. So thanks, David. And in this episode, we actually titled the episode an interesting title as always: International by Birth, Counselor by Design. Again, if you have anything to say to us, you want to let us know that you're in the room, you want to tell us where you're dialing from, do it. Do it right now in the chat. Our guest wants to know. We would like to know. And of course, if you have any question to our guest, do it as well under the video. You can put your stuff and we will put it in front of all our audience internationally and, of course, address your question to our guest. You know, when I was thinking about preparing, I was thinking about taking an active role in shaping our professional path, something we discussed in our last episode. And I thought to myself whether that means reflecting on your direction or making minor tweaks on the existing role that people have, or even finding a new job altogether. The important thing, I think, for career happiness and fulfillment is doing it. And a lot of you said that to us after the last episode. But yet, many of us give very little thought to being an active architect of our own careers. Perhaps because it is scary to contemplate or and implement those changes in your life. Do you agree, David?
I think that's absolutely true. I myself went through a significant career change, and when you do that, it's really very, very scary. And so I understand the fact that people would prefer not to talk about it, but they're going to regret it. As the young people say, YOLO, you only live once, and so really need to take advantage of that opportunity because you shared a wonderful video, I think, in one of the training sessions that we offered for our speakers at the upcoming conference about the fact that at the end of our lives, we don't regret the things that we did at work, but we regret the things that we didn't have a chance to do, that we did the things that we didn't try to do. And so let's take advantage of that. Let's take advantage of that knowledge that if we actually focus on what we hope to accomplish rather than on, the continuing on in our everyday path, we'll actually become happier people.
Absolutely. And if you allow me for my personal thing, I mean, the years of my own professional career, as you know, and of course, as you know, I'm mentoring thousands of other professionals from all over the world. It seems to me that the change is a natural and even required part of a healthy career life cycle, as you said. And it all begins with reflection. We have to take this time to reflect. I mean, I have in my agenda time called Itzik's time. It's time I'm me reflecting. Nobody can steal it away from me. As it's as important as important as anybody else. Because if I don't keep meeting with myself, who will keep it? But if you're ready to get started designing your career, those of you listening to us now from the ground up, it's a great way to embrace changes. You're going to see also the coming out ways. But how do you design your professional? That's probably what you're asking. And that's the reason we have the honor to have this episode with advocate Melissa Pallett-Vasquez. And I hope I pronounced the family name right. She probably will correct me very soon. So you can gain new insights. How can you become a counselor by design? And maybe even the first part. So before we invite Melissa to join us, let us give you some highlights about Melissa. As David himself loves to do behind people's back, we don't want to embarrass anybody, as we say in our own culture. But Melissa Pallett-Vasquez is a partner in Blitzen Sundberg Trial and Litigation Group, where she handles complex business dispute in the firm. As Blitzen Sundberg hiring partners, Melissa also leads the firm recruitment efforts, ensuring that the firm continues to attract and retain top legal talent, while also supporting Blitzen Sundberg diversity and inclusive agenda through its hiring practices. Melissa is actively involved in American Bar Association International Law Section, where she's currently the revenue officer, one of the few executive committee positions in the section. She's also previously served as the division chair, vice chair of the Food, Agriculture, and Cannabis Committee, and the co-chair of the Canada Committee. More, I think you will hear also in this episode, and I don't want to just tell all the resume of Melissa. So without further ado, welcome Melissa, and we'll be happy to join us. Thank you, Melissa.
Hi, how are you, gentlemen? How are you doing, David and Itzik? How's everybody doing?
It's great to have you with us, Melissa. And I'll just note for Itzik's benefit and for everyone's benefit that Melissa is now actually the budget officer. So I've been having a wonderful opportunity to work with her. So it's really been fabulous.
Right. Thank you, Melissa, for joining us and for your valuable time. But I think we could dive right away to the conversation. David, you take the lead on it.
Sure, absolutely. So Itzik mentioned that we titled this International by Birth, Counselor by Design. So let's take those pieces and analyze them individually. We'll start with International by Birth. What does that mean to you? And tell us about how you are international by birth.
Sure. So I am very lucky to be a dual citizen of both the United States and Canada. And also have Armenian heritage on my mother's side, which is, particularly helpful for me to just know a lot of backgrounds in different communities. And I also had the great pleasure of, since the time I was basically 7 years old, growing up in Miami. And Miami, as I think everybody knows, is a really diverse cultural mecca, and it is absolutely fabulous to grow up here. Since the time I was 4 years old, lived with my stepfather, who is actually Belgian. And so I was raised in a home in which we spoke French in addition to English. It was interesting. My mother didn't speak French, but I started going to school as a child exclusively in French, starting quite young. And so I was growing up in Miami, which is an area where I think everybody knows is predominantly Spanish speaking, but I was speaking French and getting to go to Canada all the time. And I ultimately made the decision to go to school at McGill University in Montreal, which is more than 30% itself international. And so really, I have always had an incredible group of people around me with really diverse cultures, diverse backgrounds, and diversity of language. And, I had grown up speaking Spanish and English, and ended up, English and French, and ended up just realizing that I had to learn Spanish from a variety of what I will call interesting social foibles, everything from declaring at a youngish age at a family dinner with friends, where a grandparent asked me, one of my friend's grandparents asked me why I was so quiet, and the dinner was happening in Spanish, and they were asking me why I was so quiet when, I'm quite a chatterbox, generally speaking, and I tried in my best general broken English, Spanish, Spanglish. I declared I wanted to tell him I was embarrassed. So I said, estoy embarazada. But unfortunately, I declared to the entire table, including a lot of grandparents, that I was in fact pregnant.
Oh, no.
And I will tell you that was poorly received, both completely inaccurate. It was absolutely super embarrassing. And everybody started yelling, screaming. And finally somebody said, silencio. And they looked at me and said, you had pregnant? And 14-year-old me was like, no. And I realized right then and there that I really needed to pick up Spanish also. And so that's why I really made a focus on speaking not only French, but Spanish. So, I really feel like I was both born to an international family, but then quite, candidly was raised international all the way through, really culminating at McGill, where I had the ability to be introduced to so many different diverse cultures and backgrounds from really all around the world. And I was very lucky. I joke a lot, and people talk. This year I'll be married 20 years, and at my wedding 20 years ago, I was receiving phone calls. I got 3 different phone calls from Customs and Immigration that I had to go basically retrieve guests. It was shortly after 9/11, and I had to go retrieve guests with my wedding invitation because people were coming in from areas and they were saying, well, I'm here for a wedding. And they were like, well, where's the invitation? And I said, well, I couldn't mail the invitation to Egypt because it wouldn't get there, and couldn't mail it to certain areas in South America because it wouldn't get there. And at the time, I had a friend coming from Gaza also. And,
Wow.
those people were not, it didn't come with invitations. And so I was very, very lucky to really meet people from all around the world. And it did help me avoid hostels in Europe. I was able to couch surf on my travels through Europe when I was young, instead of having to go through the hostels. So.
Awesome. That's
Thank
awesome.
you very much.
Definitely international by birth.
Thank you for the inspiring story. I mean, David, but that's by the way why I love those sessions we're doing, because how many people met Melissa during ABA, never asked her those questions, never knew the stories, and with one simple question, we get the most juicy, interesting story about Melissa that make you stand out. But Melissa, listening to you carefully, it sounds like you are very intentional about, or maybe sometimes not, about the steps you took, before becoming a lawyer, etc. But remember, to remind everybody, we titled the session in 2 parts. And the second part was counselor by design. So again, we would like to ask you, tell us about why do we like to call it? Why do you want us to call it counselor by design? And why do you call yourself counselor instead of maybe a lawyer or something else? And how does it really help you carve your niche for your legal practice?
Sure. Well, I am a trial attorney, and I focus on both trial work and international arbitration. And I have the ability and the great honor of working with people who are, a lot of whom are from outside of the country, and help them navigating either the US legal system or arbitration and the arbitration process. And as a result of being in sort of the dispute sphere, I am most often, even people who are extraordinarily sophisticated business people, most often dealing with people at a time of very high stress, very high anxiety, because no matter what is happening, nobody wants to be in a dispute. Nobody wants to be in litigation, particularly when you're dealing with commercial litigation. Nobody enters into a transaction saying, oh, well, this will end up in litigation. It's usually unforeseen, and you certainly try to avoid it. And so as a result, you're really dealing with people at a real height of anxiety and stress. And one of the things I like to ask my clients is, what does success look like for you? What does a win look like for you? Because everybody's definition of what a win looks like can vary wildly depending on the circumstances of the case. Certainly for some cases it's, well, I just want to win. I want to win this case 100%. But for other people, it's, okay, no, I really want to continue transacting business with this other party. So a win to me looks like repairing the relationship. And in order to understand what those goals are of each individual client, you have to have a level of comfort with the client. You have to know your client's business and know them as a person, because each person comes with their own set of circumstances. And each person comes to every meeting, every interaction, every case with their own fears and concerns. A lot of times when I'm preparing somebody to testify, or whether it's a deposition at a hearing or a trial, I always call it the stomach ache test. I want you to tell me what's giving you a stomach ache, because that's my job, is to take your stress and sort of make it my own, unpack it, and set it forth in a way that's productive and conducive to the client's goals. And so I find that you get the most out of both the relationship, and you're best able to accomplish your client's goals by having your clients known in every respect. And that's why I say counselor, because, in a lot of ways, we talk about lawyers and attorneys and barristers, solicitors, all different things, but there's a reason why in the United States, lawyers are also called counselors. And that's because we counsel our clients. And sometimes it's very easy to give what I always say is the typical answer of, if somebody asks you a question and you say, well, it depends, right? The answer to every question for a lawyer is it depends.
You're probably a lawyer.
Yeah, but one of the things that I always like to be able to counsel my clients on are what I always say is, good, better, best. What are your options? Well, this is a good option. This is a better option. And this is what I think your best option is based on your individual circumstances. But your clients will not rely on you, and you will not have long-term relationships with those clients if you don't have a deep-seated understanding of who they are and what their business is, because that's how you really come to understand what their goals and their intentions are. Because it's very easy. Nobody became a lawyer because they like to lose. Nobody became a lawyer because they don't want to, win. That's just sort of our inherent nature. But sometimes it's very important to sort of put yourself in the perspective of the person with the stress, with the anxiety, who's coming to you for help, and help them accomplish their goals, even if sometimes it is just, resolving a case, or, just speaking to them about how they can best accomplish their individual goals.
Love it. That's amazing, Melissa. Thank you very much. I think it's actually it added to my vocabulary, and I'm sure for a lot of people international to use that word, not only in the US. I think it really more reflect what we really do. Well, lawyer sounds frightening. People don't want to use lawyers, but counselor. It's come from the right to aid, to help, to support, to find solution, to take the stress. So thank you for that. Again, if you are with us, we are live. It's still live. So if you want to tell us who you are, where you're dialing from, put it in the chat. If you have questions to Melissa, our guest of today, do that as well, because we are with Melissa Pallett-Vasquez. Melissa, correct me if I'm pronouncing it wrong. Talking about international.
Melissa's fine. Melissa's always fine.
International by birth, counselor by design, and you want to stay with us. David, your turn.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Melissa, one of the things that Itzik mentioned at the beginning was the fact that you're also involved in recruiting. And I think anybody who's watching this can understand why you're probably an amazing recruiter for your firm. Can you share a little bit about sort of beyond yourself, how you focus on, not just your own success, but the success of your colleagues, and where the ABA International Law section may have played a role in that?
Sure. So, one of the things that I really try to be very purposeful about is, clients do not come, clients are not one size fits all. Businesses are not one size fits all. And so lawyers can't be one size fits all. There are different lawyers for each person, and particularly when you're dealing with international clients. And as I was mentioning, you have these very high stress situations, and it's important that there be a personal connection. And it's important that people, really know how best to communicate and get along. And I find that one of the best ways to really highlight that and focus on that is by focusing on the human element and also focusing on diversity in every respect. I don't just mean diversity of different races or diversity of gender. I also mean sort of diversity of culture and backgrounds, and everything from universities, like different law schools, to different geographic regions. We really like to bring together, a panoply of different backgrounds and experiences, because I feel strongly that people look at things in different perspectives. I will look at something in one perspective, and I have the ability to work with team members who will look at it from a different perspective. And, there are a million ways to get from point A to point Z. And just because you and I take a different path doesn't mean that mine is right, yours is wrong. I always say the only wrong answer is because that's how it's always been done. If I say, why did you do that? The answer can't be, well, that's just how it's done. I want to know and understand. And so when I'm hiring somebody, I always want to try to focus on sort of diversity of background, diversity of experience. And that's been something that I really think aligns very much with both my firm ethos at Bills and Sundberg, as well as the ethos of the ABA International Law section. And that's where I've seen a real synergy between the two, and a real focus from everything to putting together panels to the leadership of the ABA, and seeing the focus that the ABA International Law section has had in really embracing the diversity of experience has helped me grow in my own career. When I started at Bills and Sundberg, there were very few women in the litigation department. And when I became a partner, I was actually the only woman sitting in the room at the time. And that was, I think, there was a variety of reasons. It was a smaller department. And I'm super happy that now there are 4 of us sitting in the room together. And I realized the other day that of a relatively large department of over 30 lawyers, it's actually 1 male associate. And so now it's mostly all of the women are associates, and everybody's coming up. And, I think having sort of a fit is a very good thing, and making sure that everybody's voices are welcomed and heard. Because as I mentioned before, from my perspective, I can only view my perspective, right? And I can only see based on my experiences, but it's super important that we have different people in the room whose voices are heard and recognized. And, I have literally grown up with some of my clients. I started, I represent a Fortune 500 company where the CEO, the GC started as the most junior person in the legal department. And I started on the calls as the most junior lawyer. And she and I have risen up together and have formed an amazing friendship over 15 years. But that type of background, she would not have formed that friendship, I don't think, with, a guy 25 years older than me. We were both going through sort of young children, careers, that type of common shared experience that we were able to share together. So I think really drawing on sort of diversity of backgrounds, everything from religion to gender to ethnicity to race, I think really all compiles to form a much better firm and a much better client experience.
Awesome. Well, and not only that, but now you've highlighted the fact that if you're a young male attorney who's thinking about a litigation department, you can add to the diversity by applying to Melissa's firm. So,
I'm happy to say we do have another man starting May 13th. So, but
awesome.
Yeah.
So these guys, the last 15 days to be lucky.
Exactly.
So I love it. I want to emphasize another point, Melissa. Everybody see that you have such important purpose. I always said, purpose is a big deal, but it doesn't have to be rocket science. If you have it, it will really be like the gasoline for your spaceship. And keeping the bigger picture in mind and ensuring that action are alignment with what matters the most to you, of course. And if you're a leader of a firm or you're an individual, it doesn't matter. And I think many people say also in the US, we are the choices we make, or I think I heard also another version of it, we are what we all repeatedly do. So purpose should drive all of our choices and actions. And it'll be, I think, most happiest and fulfilled when our choices and actions are really aligned with a very clear purpose, like in your case. So I think you have definitely a true proof for that. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no.
Again, we are here with Melissa Pallett-Vasquez speaking on international birth, counselor by design. Almost at the end of the conversation, but we're still live. Stay with us because we are glad that you're here with us and you're spending quality time and learning about other people's stories. Because stories, facts tell, stories sell. That's how you stand out with your own stories. Nobody can copy you. Okay, and feel free to ask your question right now to Melissa in the chat because we want to ask your question before we end our session. But we came to our the attention switch moment, right? A good opportunity to give attention to other people who deserve it within the ABA International Law section community. So the question to you, of course, Melissa, who are the 2 or 3 people that you want to thank within the ABA International Law section community and why?
So I have to start, of course, with a woman named Christina Cardenas. And she is an international arbitration specialist. She's extraordinary. And she and I had the pleasure of going to law school with her. And we found that as we were working and getting very bogged down, we were not spending sufficient time hanging out and, maintaining our friendship. And I said, well, let's have lunch this weekend. And she goes, I can't. I'm going to DC for the ABA International Law Section Conference. I said, what is this ABA International Law Section? She goes, you've got to come. You'll love it. She goes, it'll be perfect for you. Come with me. You'll meet people from all around the world. It's extraordinary, both professionally and socially from a networking perspective. And I said, I'm not going to know anybody. It's going to be super awkward. And she goes, everybody's very welcoming. And she's like, you got to come. And I was so happy that I joined her in DC, and everybody was incredibly welcoming. And she really helped me get involved with the ABA, ILS, getting really sort of get to meet people. And so I have her to thank for a lot of what I've been able to accomplish with respect to the international law section. So I always have to give a first shout out to Christina, who is herself just an exceptional practitioner in the international law space.
I hope Christina hear that. Great.
Yeah. The other person that I will always give a shout out to is a former chair of the section, Joe Rea, who is also from Miami. He's probably, I joke all the time, I can't tell whether he's the nicest guy I've ever met or the best dressed guy I've ever met, probably both. But he's absolutely lovely, and he really has been a great source of encouragement to me. And so I always say thank you to Joe, because he's always such a friendly face every time I see him at any type of ABA meeting, whether it's international law section or big ABA meetings. And then the final person that I really would thank is Nancy Stafford, who's also a former chair. She is, I think, a great role model for women in the section, and always a great promoter of women rising up through leadership and focusing on that. And she's also a wonderful person to share a glass of wine with, who I love getting to see and getting to visit. I see her a lot in the summer when I'm up near her home in the Northeast. And so it's really great. So, those 3 people really with whom I've formed wonderful friendships, I always like to shout out. And I'm always happy to thank them for their role in helping me maneuver and excel in the section.
Great. I will say, everybody listening to us, copy Melissa. Just do the same thing. You don't have to be online to thank people. Pick up the phone, call them, send them an email, tell them how awesome they are. It's never too late. Thank you, Melissa, for sharing. Go ahead. Please help.
And I agree, by the way. Nobody's ever called me and said thank you that I've thought, well, that was weird. I've always been super appreciative of getting the call, and nobody ever regrets telling someone thank you. So
absolutely. And again, if you ask questions, Melissa, now it's the time, because we're going to end up soon. But a good way, of course, to be proactive is designing your career is to regularly reflect where you want to go. One of my favorite career design quotes by anonymous author is, ask yourself if what you're doing today is getting you closer to where you want to be tomorrow. And that's actually where you guide your life, and you will design your career. You become counselor by design and not by chance, or like many people find themselves, life take them somewhere. Again, this is a great question to come back over and over again in order to determine whether you need to course correct a bit. And in the long term, prosperity for personal and professional reflection may really allow you to forge a path that's more true to who you are. So for now, David and myself, I don't see. Oh, maybe there's a question coming. Wait, just one little second. Yes, we have Firas asking a question. Thank you, Firas. Welcome. So Firas saying, how you maintain a global mobility strategy that suits the need of international growth between US and Canada? Thanks a lot, Firas.
Well, that's a big question. I will say that, from my perspective, I always just am looking for where there are synergies between the two countries. There are some incredible statistics about where I live in Florida and Canada, and sort of the synergies between them both with personally and with respect to business. And so I like to reach out to a lot of resources that I have, whether it's the Canadian consul down in Miami, who's always very open for conversation, the Canada committee of the ABA, to see what's happening, what's going on. And, the section has actually been a wonderful resource to me for purposes of staying abreast of developments, whether it's over the last few years historically with NAFTA negotiations, what's happening with different antitrust matters, both north and south of the border, those types of different synergies and those types of interrelations. I think really just keeping on top of what the developments are and seeing what is most pertinent to your individual practice and where in your individual clients, which really circles back to what I started with, which is knowing your client's business and knowing your client's their goals, because that's how you know what to focus on. And that's what can help form your strategy with respect to what is the most important thing to focus on in a given time period.
Right. And I will to answer your question, Firas. So thank you for participating. David, you want to add something before we thank Melissa?
Oh, I just want to thank Melissa for participating. As usual, total shining of exactly what we're trying to accomplish here on these standout sessions. Outlining exactly how we can each sort of find our own path, and that's what an important lesson to share with each and every one of us.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. I mean, we hope to see you very soon in Washington. And W joining us, don't leave, because we're gonna talk beyond Melissa in a second. So just stay with us a little more. Bye,
Thank
Melissa.
you, gentlemen. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
Bye.
So those you with us, I don't know if there are more questions, but you lost your chance because Melissa left. But you still have David and myself. So David, what are your reflection? What do you think? How did you enjoy it?
I have to share a very quick story. So I was interviewing for a school that I was going to go to in Israel after high school, and I had taken 4 years of French. And so actually my French was better than my Hebrew. And even though I was supposed to be speaking Hebrew to the particular rabbi who had come in to interview me, I answered his first question. He had asked the question in Hebrew, but I answered the first question in French. The problem is that his French, even though, he was, probably in his 70s at the time, was way better than my French, even after 4 years of high school. So he immediately then switched to French, and I couldn't even keep up with that. So that's my language story. I wish that I could speak languages the way Melissa speaks languages, but it really highlights the importance of being able to speak another language and to speak it in a way that allows you to have conversation, meaningful conversation with somebody. What a blessing it is to have, if you speak Spanish or French, to have, within the United States, an attorney who can have a real conversation with you and also, argue for you in court in English. So what a blessing that is.
Right. And by the way, I think language by itself, David, is part of body language. So if you sometimes even just put some words or sentence in a conversation with somebody, it makes people get closer to you because you almost mirror the genes by speaking the same language. So I mean, there's a big psychology things about it. I don't have it in front of me, so I don't want to cut wrong thing. But I know there's a lot of interest in language, not just to speak the language. But I think for me, this.
Well, just very quickly, the interesting thing is that as a result of that gaffe with this rabbi, we ended up becoming relatively close. And I think part of the reason was because we had that interaction. So
exactly. But I think for me, the session with this stuff is also important to understand that our career path are correlated with our personalities. And so clearly that really intervene with our capabilities, with the significant other people in our career, in our life. In other words, a person career, if you're listening to us, not a job, I'm talking about career, could serve as really fairly accurate reflection of your personality. I think, if I'm not correct, but at the University of Illinois, I think, psychology professor Brett Roberts, he's the one who really found that someone chose a career path similarly helps shape their personality. So this is the link, and it goes both way. How are you as a person spend on your career can really alter your goals and your outlook on life. So these are all connected to each other. So it's not coincidental. And Melissa did it in purpose, but if each one of you look at it, you'll see a lot of reflection of what you're doing because of those personality traits we have. So now you understand, as our personalities are both reflected and shaped by our careers, the kind of people we connect with becomes also clear. When you go networking, you're connecting with people. And I want to add another observation, with your permission, David, is connected to the subject of video of today's episode. Proactively unleashing emotions in the workplace. And Melissa really gave us a glimpse about it, but it really can really be daunting concept for law firm leaders. And a lot of them don't know how to deal with it. Encouraging people really to open up, to be honest about their feeling, could really be unlock a number of tricky scenarios, but with a clear goal of what they're trying to achieve and the tools in place to encourage them really to healthy connections. Law firm leaders, if you're listening to us, can tap into really valuable skill set. And that's, I think, what Melissa is so successful in recruitment because of that. And you could do the same. And I want to stop there. So I think it's a whole process by itself.
Well, I'll just note that, she exemplifies a lot of what you talk about with your switch, that she focuses on the personal needs of the client, and thereby is better able to do all of the work that she does. It's really quite remarkable. And I think the amazing lesson of bringing somebody with her to the first conference. I encourage each and every one of our listeners to find somebody to come to the upcoming annual conference that we have in Washington, D.C. this year, so you can really follow Melissa's path. And I pretty much guarantee you that if you come to the conference, you'll find other people that you'll want to spend time with. People say on a regular basis, and it's been true for me, and it's been true for many others before me, and hopefully will continue to be true, is that if you come to the annual meeting, the annual conference of the International Law Section, you'll make friends for life. So hope to see people there.
And I would suggest, if you're coming, go to Melissa, tell her hello, and tell her because of you, because I listened to this episode, I came over. So
absolutely.
Her heart was well warm. So now, our friends, it's time to take action and implement what you have learned in this session. Again, we have been here with Melissa Pallett-Vasquez. Excuse me if I pronounce it wrong. She's a top litigation lawyer and a wonderful supporter of the American Bar Association International Law Section. And there's nobody else I can thank at the end. It's for you, David, for another joyful episode, full, again, insight, ideas. I love every time we prepare and come with this reflection. So thank you for that, David.
It's such a pleasure to be with you, and what a treasure Melissa is for the section and for the entire bar community.
Right. And David and myself want to thank each one of you. Stick till the end. Spend with us your time. Invest your time. Thank you for that. Again, don't forget to be with us in the next one, Stand Out Live episode. And I think one of them will be a very confidential, but probably be during the conference. So hold on to there, but come over, see us live. And I'll suggest, if you want to be part of that, if you want to share your story, also send an email to Angela or David, anybody of the leadership of ABA International Law Section. We'll be happy to feature you as well in one of our upcoming episodes. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, David. Bye for now.
Great to see you. Thanks so much. Be well.
Bye-bye.